may be seated. Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this wonderful occasion today. I'm here with Sean Mullins and Alicia Frederick, and you are as well for their wedding. My name's Tom Mullins, and for those of you who don't know, I'm the dad of the groom. So, did you think these two are nervous? So anyway, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it on this beautiful spot and this beautiful day. A couple of things I just wanted to explain a little bit. As you saw, we had the sage burning when we were coming down. That's an old tradition in a lot of cultures, especially in Native American culture, Celtic culture. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Yep.
Sometimes.
And in Celtic culture, it's a way to cleanse and to purify an environment for special occasions. And what's really interesting about the sage burning is that a lot of cultures do it in one way or another. Christians are used to seeing the incense burn during ceremonies, and a lot of cultures will do that. Taoists, Hinduists, everybody does some sort of a burning for that purpose. It also uplifts the soul, and it uplifts the soul into the greater universe, so people can feel like they're connected to one another and everyone else. I also did a little bit of my bowl. It's a Buddha singing bowl. I only could bring the little one on the plane, so it wasn't as loud as I would like, but it's another way to sort of help center into why we're here and the nature of the celebration that we're going to do. One of the things that strikes me about the two of them and relationships in general is many of you all know out there, you really have to be friends before you can be anything else. And now at this point, I've known Alicia and Sean together for quite some time. And I watched their friendship grow over the years. Sean has wonderful stories that he won't tell anybody probably, but they're wonderful stories anyway. Going back and forth overseas and coming back, and Alicia being here. So friendship is really important in that connection. And in a lot of ways, friendship is expressed by all cultures and all human beings around the planet. One of the things that I think I like to remind people of, and that these two people want to remind us of as well, is that we're all really human beings on this spaceship Earth, and we all sort of travel this planet together. And it's important to remember that in doing that traveling together, that we understand one another and we understand everybody's particular beliefs, cultures, thoughts, however it is that you connect to the greater good and however you connect to one another. One of those ways that we connect is actually in the Judeo-Christian culture, which many of us are from. In the Old Testament, there's a wonderful reading that I like to do. It comes from Ecclesiastes, and it is verse 9, and it does remind people of the friendship that I was just talking about. So I'm going to read that for you now. It's called The Value of a Friend, verse 9. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. But woe to one who is alone and falls, and does not have another to help. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though one might prevail against another attacker, two will withstand one. A threefold cord is not easily broken. So the idea that it really takes the commitment of the two partners moving through life to be able to accomplish that task. And these two have shown over the course of their particular relationship the resilience in being able to do that. Another thing that's important in terms of human culture is the value of food and drink. As you know, we had a little bit of that before we came down, and we're going to have a little bit of that when we go back up. But very important in many cultures is the idea of wine. Wine is a very sort of, as you know, earthy drink. It takes a lot of cooperation to be able to produce. Almost every culture has a wine ceremony in connection with their wedding ceremonies. And one of them that I want to share with you, we're going to do in a minute, was one that was practiced by more modern Native Americans. But the flask that we're going to be drinking from is an old tradition in Native American culture. But it's important to remember that wine is also important in other religious cultures and upbringings. The Jews will use it, will bless the wine during the Seder. For many of you, you may know that the Seder is the celebration during Passover. And the wine is blessed, and then it is kept for the year until the next Seder, and they bless again to do that. Christians know wine in their own particular ceremonies. It's used in the Eucharist, and it's very important for that purpose and for the bread. So what I'd like to do now is share a little bit of the ceremony from the Native Americans with you. These two haven't really had this experience yet. It's one of those things that I sort of glossed over when we were doing our earlier discussion about all of this, so I'm going to do that now. And the wine is important because wine, like love, gets better with age. So Bill is going to have to help just for a second.
Surprise! He'll tell you. No,
just you will need to take the bouquet for just one moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's easy enough.
That's great. This is a traditional flask that's used in many Native American cultures with respect to this ceremony. There are a couple of things about it. I'll put that down. Thank you. There are a couple of things about it that are important. First of all, you'll notice that it does have two spouts in connection with it. People who are very accomplished at this, which I'm not going to ask these two to do, would try and drink them together out of each spout. We are not going to be doing that.
Thank you.
You'll notice that it has the circular motif in it. That's something else that's common in many cultures and is expressed in Western cultures through the exchange of the rings. But in this culture, because metal was so particularly scarce, they used it with respect to the pottery. The other important thing about it is you'll notice that it does have design on it. Many of the designs were for the particular couple at that point, and a lot of care was taken to make the design something that both individuals could take with them. I did not have that luxury, so what I tried to do was to find a flask that helped express what I thought that these two were together, and that is the ability to sing in harmony like the wolves on the plains, like to be outside, love to be under the moon. So I purchased this one for that with the two of you in mind. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take just a little of this. As I said, modern Native Americans would use a little bit of wine. In the old days it was usually water. So I'm just going to pour a little in there, and I'm going to pour a little in here. And traditionally, the wine is the bride drinks first, and then hands it to the groom, and then he drinks. I didn't want to put too much in there for worries about just that.
He doesn't want to come
Good. There we go. I'll hand it
Well
over.
done.
Be careful.
Yeah, move forward.
A lot further down than you
Yeah,
think.
there you go. So, great. Thank you both very much for indulging me in that. I appreciate it. The last thing about the flask, to close that, is that the flask then becomes a very important part of the relationship going forward, and always is in a place of prominence within the household at that point. So. So, one of the things that I wanted to do was to read a little bit of a poem or a prayer that comes with respect to that after the wine is finished. This is usually spoken right at the conclusion, and it goes as follows. As you share this wine, so may you share contentment, comfort, and happiness from the common cup of your marriage and your love for one another. So share that. And at this point, I understand that the sister of the groom is going to have a reading for us. It's from a Native American blessing, and Sarah Mullins, if you would like to stand and come forward and do that, that would be great.
Now you will feel no rain, for each of you will be shelter for the other. Now you will feel no cold, for each of you will be warmth to the other. Now there will be no loneliness, for each of you will be companion to the other. Now you are two persons, but there is only one life before you. May beauty surround you both in the journey ahead and through all the years. May happiness be your companion and your days together be good and long upon the earth. Treat yourself and each other with respect, and remind yourselves often of what brought you together. Give the highest priority to the tenderness, gentleness, and kindness that your connection deserves. When frustration, difficulties, and fear assail your relationship, as they threaten all relationships at one time or another, remember to focus on what is right between you, not only the part which seems wrong. In this way, you can ride out all the storms when the clouds hide the face of the sun in your lives, remembering that even if you lose sight of it for a moment, the sun is still there. And if each of you take responsibility for the quality of your life together, it will be marked by abundance and delight.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we have something a little bit different. In keeping with the idea that we all really share a lot of cultural commitments and teamwork and working together, we have what is in the Germanic cultures an important ceremony. It's actually the two of them cutting a log, which is why you see up here we have a small log on the two pieces of wood. And this is important because it shows the opportunity for teamwork and the idea that you really have to work together to accomplish a task. Now, Sean, being what he does for a living, decided that a regular two-handled saw was just not good enough for this particular project. So Sean has purchased what is called a survival saw, and the two of them are going to use the saw to cut this log in half. Isn't that correct, Sean? That is correct. So if you just have to turn a little bit, Alicia, and Sean, you can go over here. And I understand we have some nurses in the house tonight.
Not a doctor.
Oh my goodness, look at that thing.
It's a good thing to do it first.
I think Alicia's winning. Excellent job. Excellent job. Excellent. So, I have learned that is an important ceremony in Germany. So we are now all sort of cross-culturally informed about that particular aspect. But it does really show the teamwork that's necessary in moving through life, and that theme is really important for any kind of relationship. At this point, we are going to have another reading in connection with this. It's on the art of marriage, and Deb Shaw is going to be reading that. Deb, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
A good marriage must be created. In the art of marriage, the little things are the big things. It is never too late to hold hands. It is remembering to say, I love you at least once a day. It is never going to sleep angry. It is having a mutual sense of values and common objectives. It is standing together, facing the world. It is forming a circle that gathers the whole family. It is speaking words of appreciation and demonstrating gratitude in thoughtful ways. It is having the capacity to forgive and forget. It is giving each other an atmosphere in which to grow. It is finding room for things of the spirit. It is a common search for the good and the beautiful and it is not only marrying the right partner, it is being the right partner.
Very much. Some lovely words that have been passed down for a number of generations in our particular culture. Another ceremony that we would like to share with you this evening comes from the Celtic culture, Irish culture, for those of you, and there are here some people with Irish descent in them. This is called the knot tying ceremony, and we're going to do that in just a minute, but I understand that you two have some vows before we get to that. Is that right? Okay. Yeah, face each other. That's a good idea.
I appreciate you because you're kind and generous to others. You never hesitate to stop what you're doing to lend a helping hand.
I appreciate you because you are strong and sincere. You choose to speak up when it matters, not just for yourself, but for also for those that can't always for themselves.
I love you. Even though you pack for a multi-day Arctic expedition, even when we're only going on a 2-mile stroll.
I love you even though you refuse to remove price tags from anything you buy for around the house, ever.
I promise to always strive to maintain strength in our relationship, even when you are far, far away.
I promise to care for you in sickness, not just the easy chicken noodle soup kind of sickness, but real and overwhelming sickness.
I promise to always point out the coolest vintage Toyotas that happen to drive by, but only the really good ones, with solid front 4x4 axles.
Perfect. I promise to always try my best to find restaurant choices that offer gluten-free, no nitrates added, pastured, or free range, grass-fed, never grain finished, 100% organic options. Even when I'm really hangry and just want to eat a cheeseburger and a milkshake.
I promise to support you in your successes and, more importantly, in your failures, to remind you to focus on the positive when you get fixated on the negatives.
I promise to be respectful and honest with you, even when it's hard and not necessarily what you want to hear.
We promise that when conflict arises, and it will, that we will strive to avoid purely hurtful words, rather to always work towards finding a loving resolution, even when it takes extra effort, and it will.
We promise to dedicate time to our friendship, to seeking out grand adventures, to daydreaming about our future, to existing in the same emotional space, to simply sitting on the front porch, enjoying the world together.
You. All right, and I understand that you have rings that you're going to be exchanging with one another. And I love the little box that it comes in.
Thank you, Rita.
Generally, the groom puts it on first. You may exchange the rings. The rings are a symbol in Western society, as you know, and in many other societies, of the eternal love that the parties have for one another. They represent a circle, an unbroken circle of love and friendship, which you are to keep from now until forever. So congratulations on the rings. So, and now we're going to do something that the Irish do, the Celtic knot tying ceremony. The two of you should clasp each other's hands just for a moment. This is a ceremony that was developed in Ireland under the Celtic culture, as I said. It is where the idea of tying the knot comes from, if you've ever heard that phrase. And the idea is to lightly bind the two of them together like this. Normally, you know, there may be a knot that's tied like that, tighter. That's exactly right. So we stand with that. One of the reasons why I personally think they do this, coming from an Irish family, is to keep the groom from running back to the pub before the ceremony is all over. But that's what they do. There is a blessing that is associated with this, and I'll read it now. This is the Irish wedding blessing at the tying of the knot. May God be with you and bless you. May you see your children's children. May you be poor in misfortune and rich in blessings. May you know nothing but happiness from this day forward for the rest of your lives. So you can run back to the pub now. So, and at this point, one last little ceremony that I'd like to perform, again, comes from Native Americans, although it is also important in many cultures. It's the idea of wearing white or a white shawl. In Native American ceremonies, it's used to signify the two of them going forth and sharing their lives together as a new couple and with the purity that is accompanying that. Excuse me. And again, this is something that the couple would keep with them until such time as they were no longer on the earth. At this point, it is my great pleasure, based upon the power invested in me by the state of Oregon, at least for this day, is to announce the marriage of these two and present to you as wedded under the law and before all of you as husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Mullins. And there will be a reception upstairs afterwards.